You are listening to The Insider with Brian Lloyd. The opinions expressed are that of the individuals and can sometimes be of an adult nature.
So we're talking about Wes Craven, who unfortunately died August.
Yeah,
and
I think it was early September, but yeah, it was.
Yeah, like I mean, you know, you look back over his work. What I always think is kind of interesting is that, like, you know, with the exception of maybe A Nightmare on Elm Street, a lot of the killers in his film, they were human, like, you know, that kind of way. That was really different. Like, you look at like other people, like as in like John Carpenter and Halloween, like Mike Myers, like, you know, he couldn't be killed, whereas in Scream and all the other ones.
Craven said that about Halloween. I remember when people were kind of asking him what his favorite horror movies were, and I know he was close with John Carpenter. I think all those guys and George A. Romero, they all probably, you know, paths cross and everything else in Hollywood. I think especially when you're making similar movies or the same kind of movies. And for kind of smaller studios, more boutique studios, and New Line were the ones that brought out Nightmare on Elm Street in 1984. But I think he always felt that Michael Myers, the fact that he walked was a little bit ludicrous. But then when you look at the main character in Shocker, it's like, you know, one of his lesser known films as well. But I think what Wes Craven did, and one of the most remarkable things that he did was, he kind of set a benchmark in the 70s for a certain kind of horror movie or for a certain kind of slasher movie. With Last House on the Left,
which was rough.
It's a crazy film. And the remake of it is actually very good as well.
You think?
Yeah, I actually quite liked the remake. I thought it was very well made. I thought it was a beautiful film, like in terms of aesthetically, how it was shot, everything else. It's a hard watch as well. It's not an easy watch too.
It's rough.
Then he did it again in 1984 with Nightmare on Elm Street, which is it still holds up so well. I think that the last 90 seconds of that movie were taken away from him by New Line. And then obviously in 1996 with Scream. You could argue Red Eye maybe in the noughties, but not so much. But for me, Scream, everybody talks about the first, 10, 15 minutes of Drew Barrymore. It is possibly, it's one of my favourite movies, absolutely, of all time. But I think it's one of the best edited and best paced movies. It just moves. It really does.
It has like a real sort of, I don't want to, like, I know it's kind of a cliche to say, but it almost kind of has a bit of an MTV buzz about it, like all the quick cuts in it and all the rest of it. But I mean, what's interesting about Scream is that it's so meta, and like, you know, you look at like Phil Lord and Chris Miller and 21 Jump Street and all that, like those films are very kind of self-referential. This was the first to really do that, wasn't it?
Yeah, Kevin Williamson's script, I think, is it was parodied an awful lot after, and that's why I never really got Scary Movie, because it was kind of like Scream is kind of a piss take, you know, in itself, and it's scary as well. It already did it, and they still made like 7 Scary Movies anyway. But yeah, I think Kevin Williamson, he doesn't get enough credit, because of the stuff that he's done since. He hasn't really replicated that success. Although he made Dawson's Creek, come on, anybody of a certain age.
Dawson's Creek
Was
amazing.
Creek.
Was amazing. Pacey and Joey, Jesus, that's a love story of our time. Like.
The theme tune's just in everybody's head now. Sorry about that. And I think not Last House on the Left. I know what you did last summer as well. That was one. I was around the age because it came out after Scream. And it was just like a very similar vibe. It was marketed as the guy who created Scream. And that's a fun slasher movie too. That's an underrated slasher movie too, I felt like. But Craven, I went to college just as I think the second Scream movie was coming out, third Scream movie was coming out. I was in college at the time and I was in film school. And while everybody else was talking about Coppola and Darren Aronofsky and everything, I was like, no, Wes Craven's the best. And just getting like side-eye from all the more cerebral film students. No, he certainly wasn't one.
But like, I mean, okay, fair enough. Like, yeah, it was like a fun slasher movie and all the rest of it. But it did have moments of like real intelligence. Like, even just the whole fact that it was aware of the rules and then it just kind of went the complete opposite way with the rules. You know, that sort of way.
It turned on its head. And the smart thing that Kevin Williamson, I think, did with a script, apart from having really sharp dialogue and believable characters, was that he had a character who was essentially the audience and who became an audience favourite, who was Jamie Kennedy's character. Yeah. And people were so pissed off when he was killed off in the second one. Sorry, spoiler alert. Although he's inexplicably in the third and the fourth one as well. I think,
what was that about?
Yeah, he's popular. Let's find a way to bring him back. But he acted as the audience, and it's always a smart move. If you do it right, it's always a smart move. I think to have a character like that who can kind of react to the shit that's going on and maybe explain the odd thing in a smart way that helps the narrative.
Actually on that topic of the sequels, like, I mean, do you think the second, third and fourth one, I mean, do you think that kind of diluted the effect of the first one?
I think the second one is a great film. I love the second film. I think it's very well made. It's one of the best. It's actually, if you look on Rotten Tomatoes, although again that can be hit and miss. I think it's actually got a higher rating than the first Scream.
Yeah.
The third one was okay. The fourth one wasn't good.
No, the fourth one was great.
But the second one is a strong, and Timothy Olyphant is great in that too. Doesn't get enough credit. But yeah, I think, you know, as Craven's work goes and looking back on his back catalogue of work, you know, for me, and, you know, controversial or whatever, but I think Scream's a better film than A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, A Nightmare on Elm Street, like, it was really over the top. But I mean, of course, like, you look at 80s horror films, that was just like what they did. They were just really, really over the top, really gory.
And I got a favour from Wes Craven a few months ago, and I turned into like a One Direction fangirl. I was like, oh my God, Wes Craven favourite one of my tweets, because I was talking about, somebody asked me what It Follows was like on Twitter, and I was like, it's a very good film. There's a real 80s Wes Craven vibe to it, and I tagged Wes Craven in it, and he favoured it. Like, and it's awesome to see he still had, you know, his work still reverberates.
Definitely.
And I think the best work that has been done in horror today, and I think It Follows is, you know, very much of that Wes Craven vibe. And a lot of the masters, I think, is due to him and due to the like superb films that he's made. And look, he made some clunkers as well, but I think that's the genre. And even in stuff like Deadly Friend and stuff like Shocker, there's moments of coolness.
Yeah.
Vampire in Brooklyn.
Look, do you know what? I tell you, I will always defend a Vampire in Brooklyn.
Really?
I do, honestly. Like, look, it was Eddie Murphy. Like, he was like at his kind of creative, you know, I don't know, valley or whatever you want to call it.
Valley.
But it was still, no, but it was still funny. Like, it still had moments. Like, Angela Bassett, she was brilliant as well. And like, it had moments. But yeah, like, what was, again, and this is the thing with Wes Craven's work, is that there is a real sense of humor about it.
Yeah.
Like Scream is hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that kind of, because again, it's so self-referential. And like, not a lot of horror directors are able to kind of get that real mix between horror and comedy.
Yeah, it's the casting too. I mean, how many people knew who Matthew Lillard was before Scream, or Ski Ulrich? And the casting of Ski Ulrich
was pretty well known, though.
Not 95, 96, I don't think he maybe was. Well, maybe he was, but he just had that kind of, he kind of looks like Johnny Depp. And that's a little knowing nod then to A Nightmare on Elm Street, which obviously broke Johnny Depp. So there's lots of stuff like that. But Matthew Lillard is just, I mean, obviously he hasn't kicked on and had the career that I suppose a lot of people thought he could have at the time. But he is great in this film. He really is. And then you have Neve Campbell, who obviously was doing Party of Five. She was around that kind of, that Brat Pack that they were calling it at the time. And Jennifer Love Hewitt obviously popped up then in I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Yeah. And like, I mean, the biggest star in it was Courtney Cox.
Yeah.
Because she was in the middle of Friends at the time.
And she was the only one who I think out of the Friends cast that had a successful film off the back of the first season. Like Joey made that film with the monkey. Didn't he? The baseball playing monkey. Exactly. I think it was called Ed or something like that. But Courtney Cox was smart because she saw a smart script. She saw a good script and had a legend of a director attached to it. And the film, like initially Scream, Robert Rodriguez was supposed to direct Scream, and I think turned it down.
Which is good, in fairness, because I don't think Robert Rodriguez could have done this.
Nah, you can't have any Spy Kids in Scream, man.
Yeah.
It's not going to work.
Well, no, Spy Kids was all right. I'm trying to think, though, actually, that monkey film with Matthew... Oh,
Matt LeBlanc.
Matt LeBlanc, Jesus! Now, I feel like I can see it, because like, I remember like there was Three to Tango was the one that
the Matthew Perry one,
Perry did, yeah. But and another one as well was David Arquette, because he was reasonably well known as well. Like, and then of course he was just like, you're talking about Scary Movie. Like, I mean, remember Doofy from Scary Movie?
Yeah.
And like, it's, I don't know. It's just, he was the comic relief, wasn't he?
Yeah, pretty much. This character is a bit of a moron. And who really grew into himself in the following in two movies.
Yeah, the two movies, yeah.
And 2 and 3, David Arquette is great. And I think outside of the Scream franchise, what happened to these, like the ripple effect of what happened was these actors got 2 or 3 films. And like, I think it's less now in Hollywood because just with the internet and just with social media. But around this time, actors would get 2 or 3 films in the back of a hit. And like Skeet Ulrich had it, like maybe he's a heartthrob. Ooh, no, he's not a heartthrob.
Yeah.
You put him in a film with Cuba Gooding Jr. and it didn't work. And you know, some of the other cast in Scream were the same. Neve Campbell was the same.
Yeah.
Not that they didn't do good work or didn't to continue to go on and do good work, but out of everybody, I think Craven is the one that kind of kicked on, despite his age at the time, and he still made 2 or 3 solid films after. Like the remake of The Hills Have Eyes as well, for anybody who hasn't seen it. The second one's not great, but the first one is excellent.
Really good. Really good.
And I will stand by saying the remake of Last House on the Left is, I think it's a good film. I think it's a very watchable remake.
Have you watched the TV series of Scream?
I made it about 10 minutes into the first episode.
And just bailed?
I just couldn't do it. Everybody is too pretty
Yeah, but like, I mean, you could say that of this, like, you know, that kind of, they're all like, Nev Campbell was really pretty, and, you know, Skeet Ulrich, whatever, he had a quality, I suppose.
Yeah, but it just didn't have that. It just didn't have that sharpness that I think the Scream script, the original, the film script had. But I might go back and give it another bash. But you're kind of watching something on MTV, you're like, yeah, you're not going to see any violence, you're not going to see any, you know. And maybe that was in the back of my head, but no, I didn't want. And I'm far from a purist. Like I said, I don't mind the remakes. I wanted the show to be good.
That's it, yeah. Because like, I mean, it had potential, like, you know, that kind of, there was a potential for it to be good, but Jesus, like MTV doing it, like, what was that about? Like,
yeah, well, Craven. I think Craven attached his name to it, but he was very much at a certain point in his career, towards the end, was very much into like kind of shepherding new talent.
Yeah, and
kind of bringing these young directors up and giving them a chance to direct mainstream American horror movies, or with the case with the show to direct a TV show. Just, I mean, maybe it does work. I know it's been renewed for another season, but you've got stuff like Teen Wolf and stuff like that on MTV. So it's going to be difficult to replicate what Wes Craven has done. I think It Follows is the closest to it.
Yeah, I mean, It Follows what really was fantastic, like, and it looked gorgeous as well. But okay, final thoughts. Would you be in favour of a Scream remake?
See, the whole vibe of Scream, and I know people are like, no, don't touch it, it's great, but the whole vibe of Scream is that meta vibe. Yeah. So you could do something with remakes. It would just depend on who was involved with it, and that's the first thing I look at with any film. It's who's writing it and who's directing it. And if they've been left alone, and they've been left alone to do their thing. So if you're going to tell me that the guy who made It Follows, sorry, whose name I don't know, if you're going to tell me that he's going to remake Scream, I'm all over that. I'll watch that.
Or Adam Wingard, who did
The Guest, yeah. I'm all over that, because if you've got a smart filmmaker who, you know, respects and loves the original material, you know, you're kind of seeing that with Star Wars now, where you've got, well, everybody's kind of all of a sudden on board with Star Wars because they're like, yeah, J.J. Abrams is deadly. You know, I like him, he's an awesome director, and they trust him, with the material. Yeah,
it's really cool. Okay, we're going to leave it there. Thanks, Mil, Mike Sheridan. Like I say, you can subscribe to The Insider on entertainment.ie, and enjoy the film.
Thanks, folks.
Thanks.